Hi, this is Dorothy with Dot Scrapbooking, and I am going to show you what not to do on making a floating frame card. So this is my first attempt. Now the one good thing I did was use press and seal. So remember press and seal. I pulled out, so it's a little slightly tacky on one side. First of all, you don't need a big piece because you're just making, chances are, a 4¼ by 5½ inch card. So you just want a small piece so you can control it better. So I used our stamp of the month called Floral Celebration, which is a great stamp, and I love the flowers. I loved them so much I probably made 100 pieces. I have them all over my craft room right now. And I embossed them with white embossing powder, and the bigger flower I stamped. So the bigger flowers I stamped, and then I took coordinating cardstock to match the stamping ink and did that. And then the leaves are all cut on sweet leaf, and they're embossed with the white powder also. Now I like the embossing. I love the embossing, actually. I just think it came out looking real nice when it's on the colored cardstock. So first thing, although I love this stamp set, it's probably easier to use a stamp where it's either a floral or leaf or a cluster that is maybe a little bit bigger and not pieces, just clusters of whatever in one piece. So it would be my suggestion. That's number one. So you have a minimum number of little pieces that can go hither and yon. So then you want to do your layout. Well, I don't recommend my layout. My layout stunk, but that's okay. So I'm just kind of trying a new technique, and that's a good thing for us to do, even though it comes out wonky. So you learn something with every time you do something and you mess up, you learn something. So that's why right here is why you use a smaller piece of press and seal. So you've got more control over it. And then you kind of press it to, I'm using a card here. I would suggest using a piece of cardstock that's cut to 4¼ by 5½, or if you want a little white frame around it or a little frame around it, then cut it to 4 by 5¼ and then when you put it down on the card, then you'll have a little border, a little bit of a border around the edge of your card. So I am going to make it look more like a floating frame, I'm cutting out a piece from the upper middle of the cluster of what's going to be the floating frame. And so I can put the sentiment on the inside there that's dropped down from the flowers. I would suggest, I didn't have the right size rectangle or square, I thought. What you want to do is use just a plain circle or oval or rectangle or square. This is a stitched one and it's a bracket, so it's got points. The points don't help. They're kind of lost and they kind of get in the way. And I would leave the flowers stuck onto the cardstock until after running it through the embosser, die cutter. So I'm running it through. And then I pull it off. So far, so good, I think. Okay, there's my card. And then I remove the thin cut, which I've washi taped in place. So the thin cut, the die cutter doesn't really like cutting the press and seal. So you kind of have to pull it away. That's why you want to leave it on the cardstock, because it cuts the cardstock. So now I've got just this loose piece, and of course you have to take off the cardstock if you use the cardstock to go run it through the thin cut. And so now I'm just placing the foam, double stick foam, so that it will be a raised. That's what's going to give you the raised look, of course. Excuse me. So I'm using foam tape or foam squares, whatever I have handy. I'm using the foam tape where I can put a longer piece. A little bit easier to control than all the little squares. So this is sort of another reason why you don't want to have a lot of small pieces on there, because you've got to cover those little small pieces with some foam also. So I'm just trying to get some little tiny pieces in there to make sure that the leaf gets stuck down with the foam. So this is why that's a shaker card piece. So you get to use all the inside pieces. I love that. So I love the little squares. And it is easier to pull the pieces of paper off with a tweezer than your fingers. So far, I think I'm doing pretty good, right? Yeah, well, we'll see. So here comes the last of them. Nothing's easy in Dorothy World. Come on. Here we go. So if you cut the edges off, then you have a go-by. So I don't really have a go-by, meaning that when you're trimming off the excess press and seal, you want to use the card or your cardstock and cut right to the edge of the card, because now I don't really have a way of laying out and seeing where the center is, and everything is getting wonky. So it's like, here it comes off again. And of course the double stick foam, it's not like Tombow. It's really sticky. So now the press and seal is starting to kind of wad up and stick on itself. And the foam tape stuck on itself. So now we'll try it again. Right side up. Trying to center it. And you don't really have a go-by. And my bracket opening has gotten misshapen. So now I'm having to take it off again. And it's becoming a mess. And now see, the little pieces are coming off. And it's fortunate that I overdub these, because you don't want to hear what I was saying. So here I'm trying to pull the flowers up to kind of make them go in the right place. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's a mess. This is not how to do it. There's an easy way of doing this. You know, some people make things look so simple, and they're not. And so now I'm just going to pull off. That's what you need to do. So if you do this at the beginning, then you have a go-by of where to lay the flowers down. You can kind of see, especially when you have a corner here, of just where exactly to lay down the press and seal. And so here is my first attempt at making a floating frame. And it's like, okay, that's just not the thing. Don't do that. Bye.